thought so.
This show is a feast for the sapphic lady. A.B. Jacobson, creator, producer, writer, and actor of A League of Their Own, being a sapphic herself, knew what we wanted and she gave it to us. Not just once, but over and over. Okay, it's a biggie, so strap yourself in because we're about to embark on a recap of A League of Their Own, Season 1. It's 1943 and Carson Shaw is running like a lunatic to catch a train headed for Chicago where the first ever tryouts are for an all-women's baseball team. Because men are at war and the baseball guild is suffering. They figure get some girls in dresses on the pitch and the crowds might start coming back. Yay for misogyny advancing women's rights! First thing that Carson does is bump into Greta Gill and her best friend Joe DeLuca on the street, and within seconds you get the feeling Greta would happily devour Carson, which, well, we'll get to that. Open on the ladies arriving at the stadium.
Holy shit.
It's women everywhere and you know that they have arrived in heaven. We get introduced to the other key characters, many of which are looking very sapphic if I do say so. We've got Lupe Garcia looking her androgynous best self, who is also the only person Esther Gonzalez can talk to because her English is limited to
Oklahoma with the wind come sweeping down the plain.
Jess McCready, the Canadian, and she's giving off the vibes too. Mabel Fox, the blonde bombshell, and Shirley Cohen, the hypochondriac to worrywart.
I'm not equipped to go do this.
We also get to meet Max Chapman, who, despite clearly having the most insane arm on her, isn't allowed to try out because she's black. Clarence, her best friend, is already one of my faves and tries to rally Max after being infuriatingly dismissed. The other girls try out, Greta winks at Carson, and I'm already shipping these two very, very hard, and I think, ooh, slow burn romance perhaps. But the show has no interest in that because as they wait that night to see if they got on the team, surprise, they did. Greta gives Carson what looks like the most lackadaisical haircut ever and spends more time gazing at Carson and playing with her hair than actually cutting it. Not complaining because wow, that scene was all sorts of intimate.
Do you want me to stop? No.
She could have given Carson a mullet and I would have been fine with it. They get drunk, write a Dear John letter to Carson's hubby together, which seems very gay. Back in Rockford, Illinois, Max's mum knows that she went to tryouts because Clance's husband, Guy, let it slip. The two aunties get their 2 cents in.
No, we love it.
I said, obviously, she went to those tryouts. I knew
You
it all
did not. I said that.
And I need them to get their own comedy show. Max is pissed at Guy, so she goes to give him a piece of her mind at his work, and when she gets there, she sees that the baseball ladies are partying because they'll be training in the same town for the season. Look at the joy on her face. At the bar, Greta is again looking at Carson like she is a tasty snack while romantic music is playing in the background.
I've never met anyone like you. Well, I've never met anyone like you. I'm sure that you have.
She tells Carson to rob the bank.
Not actually rob the bank.
You're saying that if I found a job for us to pull, you wouldn't do it?
And being the bold mother ucker that she is,
Come with me.
I thought so.
she then walks away and leaves with a soldier. And guess who witnessed that kiss? Max. This is important for plot reasons, I'm sure. We close out the episode with this newly minted all-woman baseball team named the Peaches because...
God, we are all fucking rude!
Episode 1 thoughts. I loved it. I'm a convert. Sign me up. I'm on the Gretchen ship and I'm ready to sail. That wink while at tryouts? Yes, I love a woman with confidence. Also, Max and Clarence, love their dynamic. Best line of the show right here.
What in the howdy-doody white Jesus unseasoned chicken kind of dancing is this?
There is a wonderful tone with the dialogue, the quips are on point, but there is clearly the pathos written in too. I want to know more about all of these characters, many of whom are clearly gay, and Darcy Carden is a goddess. In episode 2, Max is trying to get onto the men's baseball team. Looks like she needs a job in the factory, however, to do so, and two odious women are being biatches about it. So her mum inadvertently gives her the idea of submitting an application using Max as her name instead of Maxine. Play that system, Max. Greta, after kissing Carson, is like the boy who likes the girl but doesn't know what to do about it, so keeps snapping her bra. Although she does pass Carson the book A Tree Grows in Brooklyn while on a tough call with her family, which, and I had to look this up, is about rising above circumstances and having tenacity. So that's really kind of sweet of her. The Peaches are already having their first game with only one practice session, which, well, that would be like putting on a play with only one rehearsal, so stressful. Ron Swanson turns up to be coach, and his inane sayings get my creepy crawly senses going, and I don't like him. Instead of practicing more, they're taken for makeup lessons because, as we know, the most important thing is how women look and making sure that they fit into a narrow definition of femininity. Those who don't fit are summarily thrown out of the team, which gets Greta pretty antsy.
It's to make sure that we don't look like a bunch of queers. Do you get that? That's what all of this is.
Clance is preparing for a crab boil, and it's very important it goes well, so of course things go very, very wrong. Clance's crabs have been given to someone else, and when she goes to get them, she lands on a funeral, and well, you know she's not getting those crabs back. Desperate, she goes to the store for white folk, and as you can imagine, she's ignored. That is, until Carson shows up, and I was afraid for a moment this would turn into a white savior moment, and was relieved that it did not. It's their first game, and the Peaches are bombing. There's a heckler in the crowd being misogynistic, and I'd like to punch him in the face, but the ladies have to smile and bear it. Greta gives this cute little dance, but I guess she's being too coquettish because she is told to tone it down. This shakes her. Carson tries to console her when she finds her crying in the changing room, but in the end I think it's Greta who consoles Carson. The chemistry is broiling gently along. Over at Clance's, the crabs are a success, and Max is getting her parents' approval for her feminine dress and for dancing with her man who is a friend, Gary. But ho ho! Revelation! Max is dancing with Gary for show because she has a lady love. Another win for the team, make everyone gay. Quick thoughts. Clance's increasingly disheveled look was more amusing to me than it should have been. I was actually cackling. Greta crying was a nice humanizing moment after her being a bit of an asshat in all episode. When Greta said,
Whenever I really let myself want something, it never really goes right.
"Why are you calling me out like that, Darcy Carden?" Okay, episode 3. Carson is having a confusing, sexy dream about Greta and her husband making out, which turns into a threesome as her subconscious works its gay magic on her, which makes her all awkward with Greta. She tries to friend zone her, but well, good luck with that, Carson.
Friends can mean a lot of different things.
Meanwhile, Max is being complimented by her mum for being the model daughter and finally taking her life seriously, aka not pursuing baseball. Clance is feeling a bit off, faints, and my fave aunties from the hair salon are back to suggest
A baby already? Girl.
Spoiler, her husband Guy has been enlisted and she's not handling it so well. Coach is not training the Peaches enough, so Carson tries and fails to talk with him with a conversation pie.
It was a conversation pie.
Greta and Joe are being a bit of an ass to her about it because you know that Greta is bent out of shape that Carson friend-zoned her, enough that she says yes to a blind date to make Carson jealous. Classic trope, and I'm here for it. Carson suggests the team do extra secret practices. During one of their nighttime practices, Greta and Carson are being just friends while lying on the grass together, gazing at the stars. Practice is paying off too because they win their next game. That night, they're celebrating their win. Greta makes a move, and gay panic as Carson announces,
I do not like you. Stop.
"Oh honey, yes you are. Don't be afraid of the gay." Max starts her job and is immediately discovered to be a woman, but they don't care. They need all the able bodies they can get. She thinks she can work night shifts there and day shifts at her mum's salon, but life has other plans when Max has switched to day shifts, which means that she has to tell her mum that she isn't that model daughter who will take over the hair salon after all. But she can't bring herself to say this with the reveal of the new salon sign with both their names on it that her mum has just bought. She can only handle the pressure of motherly expectation for so long, however, before she tearfully confesses her need to continue pursuing her softball dream. Her mum doesn't get it. Greta is looking like a total dish for her date. Miss Beverly, the chaperone, is having lady issues, so Greta nominates Carson to come instead and proceeds to lay it on thick with her date to make Carson jealous.
I don't think I've ever met anyone like you know that?
It works. Carson leaves the table and Greta follows her into the ladies, where Carson confesses how she feels.
You want me to say that I'm jealous? That I have feelings for you? Fine, I do.
Later, Carson gets to talk to her husband, Charlie, on the phone. He says he never got the letter because he's in Dublin on leave, but he also appears to be at the US military hospital. Something about that call gets Carson all hot under the collar for Greta, which, despite the fact that she's cheating on her husband, I approve of a lot. Quick thoughts on episode 3. I really love the visual of Carson and Greta laying on the grass together and that slow zoom in on them with Carson's arm sort of casually flung out as if she wouldn't mind having it around Greta's shoulders, and Greta lying with her knees turned in like she wouldn't mind being in Carson's arms. I just love that. Also, Carson and Greta are getting a ton of two-hander scenes in story, which feels so different from the drip feeding we usually get with sapphic pairings, even when they're the leads of a show. Is this unusual? Is this what it feels like to have a queer romance be the most important pairing on a show and be given adequate screen time? Finally, I love how Max is going after what she wants. Episode 4. Carson is being a desperate gay by bursting in on Greta and asking if she would like to go to the library. I'm sorry, but yes, height difference, good, approved. But all of that is interrupted by Greta freaking out when she hears sounds, and Carson is getting frustrated.
What's the rush?
I don't know, I wanna find a spot where,
Okay.
The Peaches are doing well, and Carson seems on the fast track to leadership despite how awkward she is. Lupe, who is on the bench due to an injury, doesn't like Carson encroaching on her territory with the coach. I smell rivalry. The team plays their first away game, and Carson, being a horny little minx, organises to bunk with Greta, which turns out to be, of all places, a convent. And Carson certainly doesn't waste any time jumping on Greta the moment the door is closed, but she's also, perhaps, a little too eager, and she gets into her head about it. Greta is very sweet. Max is getting paid $25 a week, and I'm crying because inflation is real and she's also probably being paid a quarter of what the white dudes are. Clarence clearly feels that this is a lot because she's thinking of applying too to help pay the mortgage with Guy going to war. To cheer Guy up before he goes, Max suggests a double date with Gary, and look, I get it, you're trying to shoehorn yourself into a heterosexual life, but, well, Max is excited because she's finally been told by the coach that she can try out, but it looks like that position is already filled by Gary. It makes things awkward. Carson and Greta are picnicking on their bedroom floor, which is both adorable and depressing because this is the only place they can do that. Greta explains why she left with that soldier in episode 1.
Whenever I'm starting something new with someone, I always like to make sure that I'm seen on a man's arm. It's just one of the rules that I have to keep myself safe.
Oh, sounds exhausting. She's also telling Carson that this is just a bit of fun. Sure, Jan. Then why is Joe warning you that you're not being careful? The coach leaves mid-game for unknown reasons. Bye, Ron Swanson. Though Lupe is ready to step up as interim coach, Greta nominates Carson and they both get the job, which doesn't help the tension between the two. Carson finds Greta's belief in her very sexy, which leads them to bed. Their love scene is too short, but yes to this post-coital shot. Max turns up to try out for the softball team despite her spot being gone, and she convinces them to let her try out, but she chokes, leaving herself humiliated. Meanwhile, the tension between Lupe and Carson escalates into a fight on the pitch, causing them to forfeit the game, for which Lupe gets the blame. To make matters worse, when Carson asks if she and Greta can go somewhere, Greta is acting all standoffish. Ouch. And then Max turns up and basically blackmails her about how she saw her kissing Greta. Quick episode 4 thoughts. I liked how the ad at the start helped highlight the misogynistic environment they were working with. We're essentially watching a number of clearly gay women having to do performative heterosexual femininity, and while it's amusing as a viewer, it's actually anything but when paired with the reality of what happens when they don't perform.
You look nice. You meeting someone? I like to watch you. You're really beautiful. You know that?
Greta's flirty comments to Carson throughout the episode was reminding me that I'm very gay. I wish there was more time given to Joe and Greta's friendship. Episode 5. Max and Carson are off to a baseball field in the dark, and it seems like Max doesn't want to blackmail Carson. She just wants to pitch as if to prove that she still can, but then runs off into the dark, leaving her bag behind. At work the next day, Clarence, with Guy off to war, and Max, with her failed baseball dreams, are both pretending they're okay.
I'm good. Okay. Oh, I am. So good.
Oh, good.
Because I'm fine.
Are you two okay?
Never better. We are fine. We're great.
So much so, Max is tearing down all of her posters that night, and it ends in a confrontation with her mum.
You're gonna throw me away too if I ain't what you want.
Maxine Chapman, so help me God. I will put your ass out if you don't stop this.
You would, wouldn't you?
That sees Max move in with Clarence. Seems like the fight on the pitch between Carson and Lupe has brought down the ire of the bigwigs. Carson is told that she's now the sole coach because Lupe started the fight. Lupe is deeply pissed and Carson needs to talk about it, so she returns Max's bag to her and brings a conversation pie, which this time works because Max comes to the field that night. Max goes in search of her Aunt Bertie, a woman she's never met before because she's essentially been excommunicated from the family for some scandalous yet unknown reason. When she shows up at the house, Max discovers her Aunt Bertie is maybe more of an Uncle Bert, which freaks her out. So she runs away in a gay panic, which leads her to Gary's place and, well, you know, gay panic, and then gay regret. The Peaches are having their first practice since Carson was made sole coach. Lupe is being adversarial and Carson ends up crying.
There's no crying in baseball!
With the help of Miss Beverly, she tries to assert her authority, but it's a bit much and I found it hard to watch, I won't lie. Greta, however, is liking it.
Do not move. Do not.
Ooh. Even if the game doesn't go well. Carson is all in her head about it and wants to talk, but Greta just wants to make out. It ends in a fight. When Greta talks to Joe about it, she says,
"You're happy with her."
"Don't fight your feelings, Greta." In the meantime, Jess confronts Lupe about why she's got an attitude towards Carson, and Lupe reveals that it was Carson who started the fight, who did the secret practices, and more besides, and somehow she's getting the opportunities while Lupe is labelled as the troublemaker.
Just had it handed to her. When you never wondered why that is?
I didn't think of it like that.
You don't have to.
Carson and Max are chatting again, and Carson basically puts her foot in her mouth.
It'd be so much easier for me if you were on the Peaches.
For you? Did you even see me at tryouts?
Yeah, your throw was incredible.
And did you say anything when they kicked me off the field? Did you do anything?
She then leaves. Arriving home, it looks like that chat with Carson has made her realize she needs to figure out who she is without baseball. And so she goes back to Uncle Bert's place and asks for a haircut. And you can just feel the liberation she feels as the hair comes off. Meanwhile, Carson, realizing from her chat with Max that she's been making it all about herself, apologizes to the team and to Lupe too. And it works. They win their game, which means that they may have a shot at the championships. That night, Greta opens up about a previous lover, how they were cautious at first and then they weren't and then got caught.
Her mom caught us. Her parents had her put away.
Which explains all the hot and cold behavior we've seen in Greta. It has been coming from a place of fear and trauma. And in confessing it,
I still want this. Me too.
It looks like our gals might be able to find a way forward. Quick episode 5 thoughts. This episode did a number of awesome pivots. Firstly, with Lupe and Jess's chat, I love the way that our perspective is pivoted so effectively with that one sentence.
I didn't think of it like that.
You don't have to.
And how it contextualizes Lupe's antagonism, which till now may have seemed largely unjustified. And then again with Max and Carson, when Carson is called out for not being a good ally, for not speaking up when she saw an injustice happening at the tryouts. And then with Greta opening up and giving us the full context of why she's so fearful of discovery, helping us frame that hot and cold behavior we've been seeing from her. Also,
I think I might love her too.
Me too, Carson. Me too. I'm loving the introduction of Bert. The diverse identities of this show is so cool. And then Max's haircut was so potent. Hair being given such importance in society as a marker of femininity, and her getting to a place where she felt comfortable to have that chopped off, I felt was so symbolically powerful. Episode 6. The Peaches are starting to get famous when they are asked to sign autographs after coming out of The Wizard of Oz, an iconic film for the queer community. Apparently they forgot to invite Esty to the movies and she's feeling left out, to which Lupe is dismissive, just as she's been dismissive of Esty from the start. While Carson is trying to cheer Esty up, she overhears Miss Beverly on the phone, and it seems that the bosses may trade the Peaches' best players with the team they believe will actually make it to the championship. And while Carson asserts the Peaches will make it, it seems like that is a tall order, given they need to win almost every game to do so. Meanwhile, Max is hanging out with her Uncle Bert, who is looking mighty dapper in a suit, and you can see the wheels are turning in Max's head, seeing how authentically he's living his life, even though he risks it every time he steps out the door. The Peaches win their next game, but then Carson clocks Lupe chatting with the opposition after the match. Greta suggests Lupe is trying to get traded, which seems likely since Carson hears Lupe begging Miss Beverly to be swapped out. Lupe then leaves the house and Carson follows her, and it leads us right to Rosie O'Donnell and her underground gay club.
Are you a friend of Dorothy?
A nice reference to how the term was being used back then to ask if someone was gay. Lupe's freaking out at being found out until Jess, who is also there, reveals that Carson and Greta are a couple.
You and Greta? Oh, God. Oh, the height. The height. Who does what?
Carson tries to convince Greta to go to the club, but instead Greta takes her to dinner. They chat about some important things about future plans, how Carson doesn't want kids and how Greta would but can't see how that would work, how Charlie, the husband, fits into Carson's future. It's like they're trying to feel it out if there's a possibility for them. Meanwhile, Clarence does not see the gay potential of the Wizard of Oz. While she's having a rant, Uncle Bert shows up with a present and Max is deeply uncomfortable at these two worlds mixing.
No, you can't just come over here like this.
Why not?
You know why.
Especially with Clarence's reaction.
It's not your fault, your aunt's a freak.
Max shows up to talk to Carson and she's trying to figure out her identity and how she fits into the world. It sounds like Carson is trying to figure that out too. Max decides to put on the suit Uncle Bert has offered and goes to the queer house party that he's hosting, and there's this lovely moment between them where Max explains why she's not wearing the full suit and in doing so asserts her own way of expressing herself. She also spots a cute girl.
Go ahead, get going.
Okay.
And so she does. The Peaches have been having an incredible streak and they make it to the championships. Carson has extracted a promise from Greta that they'll go to the club if that happens, and Greta convinces Joe to come too. Jess and Lupe have to search for Esty first because she's run away, so it's just the three of them, and for a few moments it's lovely. They get to hold hands and to dance together. Joe even finds a girl and I'm so happy for her, except in the next moment the cop arrives and it's chaos. Greta and Carson lose Joe. They do manage to escape into a movie theatre and you can see Greta retreating behind her walls. Episode 6 thoughts. Oh, this was a tough one. I felt that handhold when they arrived at the club. You know, when you can't even have that small amount of affection in public and then being in a safe place and then knowing that you can. Getting to do something as simple as dancing with the person that you like, except this place is not safe, and that contrast worked so effectively. Greta's fears are suddenly so potently felt. I loved it, but also, you know, I hated it because you know that these things were really happening back then. I also loved seeing Max explore what her queer identity is and how she fits into the community, and I can't think of a lot of media that does that. And for it to also be from the perspective of a black character too. Usually the exploration of identity is tied up in romantic relationships, which is what is happening for Carson, and of course that's not bad, I love a good love story, but I think it's important to see these stories too. Episode 7. The next morning, Greta is clearly not okay, looking out the window for Joe. Joe is brought back by the police, effectively outing her, and her only option to stay in the league is to be traded off to the rival team, the Blue Sox. Greta is begging her not to go.
When things get messy, we leave.
Yeah, well, not this time. I'm not walking away from this.
Meanwhile, Max is looking so cute and glowy after a little hookup with the mysterious girl from the night before, and her uncle does her a solid by getting her the clues that she needs to track this girl down. Turns out this mysterious girl called Esther, not Esty, Esther, is in fact a pitcher for this traveling all-Negro team, and things get tense because Max can't help the surge of jealousy she feels at seeing Esther doing what she wants to do most in the world. Esther gets kind of bitchy about the whole thing and stalks off. Carson tries to console Greta following Joe's departure, but it isn't working. It looks like their relationship is crumbling.
I warned you, but you just kept pushing me.
And then this.
Are you telling me that you're gonna leave your husband and your comfortable life for this? For me?
And there it is, Greta's vulnerable underbelly fully exposed, and Carson is unable to say yes. Of course, this is the moment the husband shows up just to stab that knife in a little deeper, and the twist comes when Greta, probably unable to help herself, comes down to watch Carson and Charlie make their hellos. Carson asks if they can go to his hotel, and she basically tries to jump him as if trying to prove something, but they're clearly out of sync. Carson then finds the letter he said he never got, and things get tense. Jess and Lupe track Esty down, and Esty is pissed at Lupe for how unkind she's been to her this whole time, but ultimately agrees to come back to the team. Jess contrives to leave Esty and Lupe alone to work things out, which it works. Lupe reveals that she had a daughter when she was about Esty's age, and that her parents took that baby away from her. She said that she didn't protest too hard because she knew that this was her one chance to escape her life, and so she left. She hasn't seen her daughter since, and Essie reminds her of her daughter, so you can imagine the guilt she feels every time she looks at her. Max lets Clarence know that she spent the night at Uncle Bert's and that she'll be staying there more often, that he's not a freak. You can feel how hard it was for Max to come out and say that. You can feel how much she wants to tell Clarence why, that she's queer too, but it's like the words can't come. The fear is too great, even with someone who loves her as much as Clarence does. Clarence appears to be accepting, if a little confused. They settle down to watch the game. Max is feeling bad about being shitty at Esther before, so apologizes, and in return, Esther fakes having an injury and then gets the captain to sub Max in instead. And well, this time Max doesn't choke, and she pitches like she's never pitched before. The captain of Esther's team is so impressed, he offers her a job, and she says,
"Sorry, yes, take me now."
With Joe gone and Carson's husband there, we discover that Greta has skipped out. So Carson leaves Charlie to go find her at the railway station and asks her to come back, if not for her, at least for the game. And she does. Episode thoughts. Again, I wish we'd seen more of Joe and Greta. Their moment was powerful, but I think it would have landed even better if we'd had even more of their friendship throughout the season, although my heart totally broke for them. I am so happy for Max. Finally, she's been given the opportunity to do what she loves most, and I'm really happy for her. And then Greta, she killed me this episode, especially when she asked if Carson would give up everything for her, and then seeing what she suspected, the hesitation on Carson's face. Episode 8. The Peaches, demoralized after Joe's departure, are losing the championships and will be out of the running if they don't win the next one. Charlie is hanging around like a bad smell and giving terrible advice that even Carson doesn't believe in, but still she parrots it back to a perplexed team. Greta confronts her about it, and this is probably one of my favourite tropes, where she challenges Carson to step up into her own power and to do better. The consequence of that? Carson asks Charlie to go home, and then at their next practice she pulls out the very book that Greta had given her and uses it to give a motivational speech. I love how they're using a lot of little Gretchen moments to tie into the show in other places. The motivational speech works because the team secures their next few games and secures their continued place in the championship. Greta also gets an awesome job offer in New York during the off-season, which makes me very happy because she deserves it. Meanwhile, Clarence is interviewing flatmates because Max is leaving in a few days. Clearly, the coach of the factory baseball team doesn't know this because he's finally offering her the opportunity to play on his team. The satisfaction of being able to turn him down. Max and Clarence go to have dinner with Max's parents. Her dad is super happy for Max, but her mum can't bring herself to be, and when Max confronts her, it's clear that it's fear for her daughter, fear that because she'll never live a conventional life, she'll be vulnerable.
Women without men aren't protected, especially the colored ones.
Which I get, but I agree with Uncle Bert when he shows up to confront his sister and tells her,
"And if you don't let her go, she's not gonna come back to your door."
Clarence and Max are saying goodbye, and the feels. Max is crying, Clarence is crying, I'm crying, but Max can't stay sad for long because she has her dream job and she has Esther. Although I'll be real, I'm not liking Esther all that much, even if I love the fact that she, a queer black woman, was the key to Max being able to pursue her dreams. 2 hours later, and Max is already calling her bestie, and Clarence doesn't say it, but it turns out that fainting, she actually is preggers. Just a little drama for next season, I'm sure. It's the final game of the championship. Jo is there and playing for the Blue Sox, and there is tension between her and the Peaches, especially with Greta. Lupe's arm is getting tired and the Blue Sox are getting in some pretty easy runs, so Carson gives a rousing speech to rob the bank. It works. By the end of the game, it's neck and neck, and it's down to Jo. She hits it out of the park, literally, effectively winning the game for the Blue Sox. Only as she rounds one of the bases, her knee cracks sickeningly and she can't walk. The rules say that her team isn't allowed to help her to get to home base, but the Peaches all get behind her and help her walk home. Stop, I'm already crying. So while the Peaches lost, they also really won, and I thought it was the perfect way for it to end. They're celebrating despite their loss. Miss Beverly reveals she's a friend of Dorothy's to Jess, and Greta asks Carson if she'd like to come to her to New York. Party revelry interrupts before Carson can answer, but the way they're looking at each other through the crowd, the answer is clear. It doesn't stop Carson from running after Greta as she's about to leave for the train the next day, pulling her aside. Can we talk about how Greta has to kind of slide her leg down for a moment as they kiss? Why do I like this so much?
It changed my whole life.
You opened me up again, Carson.
I get that Carson needs time with herself. It's the smart and adult thing to do, so all I can say is we better get a season 2. Okay, let's finish off with some season 1 thoughts. I loved the equally weighted parallel storylines between Max and Carson. It was a way to juxtapose what it is for white queer women and for black queer women to navigate the same dream using historical facts. We literally see how much more Max had to struggle to get where she was, and I felt like a lot of care was given to her storyline. I also love that the most important relationship in her life was her best friend. I love Clance. I imagine the reason why Max's storyline works so well is because there was the diversity behind the scenes. Mfoniso Udofia wrote and produced, and there were other black women on the writing staff too, notably Gabamisola Ikumelo, who played Clance. Anya Adams, Ayoka Chenzira, both black women, each directed an episode. Michelle Badillo looks queer, Abby is queer. It's the kind of writing staff you hope to see to help bring authentic and diverse voices to the screen. The diversity behind the scenes naturally flowed into the portrayal we saw on screen, not just ethnicity-wise, but also in terms of the type of queerness we saw represented. None of them were strictly labelled because back then they didn't have the multitude of labels we do now, but the sheer number of queer characters in all their hues was delightful. The show was light in many ways, with its bright cinematography, its injection of comedy. However, it really doesn't shy away from any of the realities of what it meant to be queer back then and addressed a lot of topical racial issues. Abby Jacobson said they did a lot of research, and I felt it. It's like we're seeing a slice of queer history laid out with fidelity. What else? I loved the characters. They each had their own distinctiveness with their own arcs, be it Max fighting for her dreams, Lupe confronting her past, Greta opening up, or Carson stepping into her own power. There is so much more going on, of course, and I suspect each rewatching will offer up new nuggets and insights. I wish we could have spent more time with some of the other characters, although just scripting this video was an insane amount of work because each episode was so tightly packed it was hard to trim down each recap to a reasonable length, hence this behemoth video. So I hope we get to know them better next season. And I'm not complaining because it meant we got a ton of Carson and Greta content this season, and just thank you. I love it. How wonderful to get so much screen time, so much texture in this queer couple. I was a bit dubious when they got them together so quickly, but it worked. Carson was clearly the lead of her storyline, but they also gave Greta some fantastic nuance that made her more than just the love interest that helped Carson assume her queer identity. And like I said, I love Greta pushing Carson to be more and better. My absolute favourite trope. Also, I like how they played with this idea of real and not real through the season. Being women and being queer means that they were doubly invisible. Sapphic women have often operated on the edges, often undetected, because women were only recently, in terms of history, acknowledged to be sexual beings, which is why things like Boston marriages were ever even possible. They were so invisible that in many ways they were not real, not in their relationship with other women, nor in their ambition, because they weren't acknowledged. So I thought it was very potent for Greta and Carson's first time to be happening in a convent where they weren't allowed to speak, touching on that idea of invisibility, of the silence that they need to employ in order to be who they are. There's so much more depth in the stories and themes that they touch on, but I think we're going to stop here. If you've made it this far, I am seriously impressed. Thank you. And since you're here, let me know what your thoughts are on the show. Be sure to check out my other videos on this channel, and until next time, lady lovers.